Tabletop RPGs like D&D involve a lot of cooperative storytelling, but sometimes I feel like players just don't know how to take part in guiding the narrative.
Let's discuss access every pillar of Dungeons & Dragons through questions.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds.
I guess it's time to start asking some questions.
So this video is about, the players being able to direct the narrative of the story through asking questions, and more specifically, directing the game towards the pillars of play in Dungeons & Dragons that they're most interested in.
Now, I've seen a lot of people talking about on social media, oh, my DM never does this, or my DM doesn't take this into consideration. And they're always reaching out to other fellow players rather than to their GMs about this is an aspect of the game that I'm really interested in. And they want someone else to kind of correct that for them. So I figured, this would be a very interesting topic to kind of be like, all right, here is how either you as the player at the table or you as the character through your actions and dialogue can, as we said, direct the narrative of what's going on in the game.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think the big thing with most of this stuff in the game is your GM, your DM, probably not a mind reader. So just, you could always express your opinion, let them know what you're thinking, how you feel, discuss with the other players, see what they want. It's always a good idea to, just have an out-of-game discussion whenever you can and hash this kind of stuff out. But there are ways in-game that you can actually take part in the narrative and kind of direct it. Speaking of narratives and storytelling, a great narrator and storyteller is our friend Danny Bell, award-winning author who is the sponsor of this video. He has the Black Pages novels series that he's got out. Book number 4 is about to drop. We're super excited for it. Ted just started reading it. I'm like halfway through the series. I'm a little bit behind, but the first 2 books that I've read, or I should say listened to, I listened to all of the books. I've really enjoyed. And he gets these like award-winning voice actor casts that do such a great job. Right off the top of my head, I know like Mark Muir is involved in some of the latest stuff, and he's like Commander Shepard, and he's pretty well known. Ted knows him from like the Neverwinter Nights D&D video games and stuff.
Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. Really cool guy that we got to meet. But he's involved, and if you're looking for something to read, this is a great place to go. Alana Block is the main character, and she has this power to go into works of fiction. And she kind of like does this and like asks the question of like, why are like all of these background characters always have something bad happen to them and nobody cares about them? But she does, right? So it's kind of, and it involves, I don't know, superpowers or magic. It's a, modern day or urban fantasy style adventures with a lot of fun things, a lot of fun elements in there. And I'm really enjoying this series, and I think you will as well.
So Storm Chaser, book number 4 is dropping on Amazon. Go either get the new book, or if you haven't checked it out yet, get the first book. If you're looking for another way to support Nerdarchy, and you'd like to help us keep making all these wonderful videos and the articles on our website, nerdarchy.com, why not head over to Patreon and support us over there?
As a special thank you, players and DMs alike will receive 5e content, drop-in encounters. We make spells, magic items, drop-in encounters, races, subclasses, things I'm probably not even thinking about. You get a chance to game with us. We even turn some of those magic items into print and play cards. You can go over there and support us. There will be a link in the description.
So, every time that there is a problem, that there's something where an aspect of the game is just not really being addressed, and it's something that you want, that's the problem. So you have to figure out how you're going to get from point A to point B. So we've got some things broken down by pillar.
Yeah, I mean, any good story has conflict or problems that need to be solved. And, there's generally a lot of different ways that you can solve them. And your approach might actually dictate which pillar of the game that you're going to access. So if you want to play the game a certain way, you should think in those terms and approach it from that way. If you don't want to do combat, but you approach everything as a combat, well, that's what you're going to receive every time.
So the first up then is going to be combat. So we've got this broken down into how a player could ask something at the table or even away from the table, or how the character in the narrative can kind of make a decision or ask a question to kind of go into incorporate more combat into the game if your game is just lacking it.
So if as a player you want to fight more things, the real simple question here is there anything to fight here, or where can I go to fight things? If that's important to you in the game, as a player, if you can start answering these questions or have them asked of your GM out of game or as your character in game, then maybe you're going to get more of what you want.
So if you say, is there anything to fight here, and your GM says, no, there isn't, you can prompt that by, okay, then where can I go? And this then specifically tells the DM, oh, this character or this player is seriously looking for something to fight. I know that in our home game we have a friend been gaming with for years, and he uses D&D as a stress relief mechanism. He enjoys, quote unquote, killing these fake monsters, these things by slaughtering them by rolling dice, and it helps him out in his day-to-day life knowing that he can come in game and roll these funny shaped dice.
The people that are aggravating you in your life, you can't take this stuff out on them, but imaginary monsters, sure, why not? As a player, you can ask the question of and seek out, are there like exotic hunts you can go on to find monsters to fight, whether it's lethally or non-lethally, but it gives you a chance to challenge your character in a combat scenario or situation.
If an exotic hunt isn't something that's available or maybe even interesting to your character, battle arenas or competitions are things that can easily be sought out. I know that that's something that typically happens at least once in my campaigns, where there is some kind of competition or some, like, it could be a contest or it could be just there's a tavern and these guys like to go bare knuckle box or do lethal combat just to kind of showcase who's the winner of the day. And it's fun things that wind up allowing characters who are seeking combat to get access to it, even if the narrative for the session doesn't have something like that built in.
Yeah, it could be full-on gladiatorial arenas. It could be underground pit fights. There's a lot of different ways you can incorporate this kind of stuff. And also sometimes it allows you to add in these situations that are combat, and they don't necessarily have to be final in their conclusion.
I've done things in regarding to like festivals having a mock combat display, and you can do a standard combat, but the characters walk away with some bruises, but without any real damage to show for it. So like these are just fun examples of ways to incorporate it into your games that are meant to be more role playing and narrative, and give those characters who are seeking combat a way to do so.
Tournaments with jousting and footless all fall into that category as well.
So next up, we're looking at the social pillar. I know that there are plenty of games out there that are designed to be more in the way of the typical dungeon crawl, that characters don't have NPCs to interact with, and it's just a straight up, there's a monster, roll initiative. Move on to the next monster, roll initiative. And sometimes that's not always fun and easy for the characters who are looking for more of the social pillar.
So, in these instances where, like Ted said, maybe it's kind of like a dungeon crawl, there's monsters all over the place, but sometimes the players might ask the question, can we communicate with this monster? Can we talk to it? Happens all the time in games. There's also magic that sometimes allows you to speak and communicate with things that you normally can't. Or, maybe there's nonverbal ways of communicating with it. Maybe you figure it out. It's hungry and it wants food. Can you kind of lure it away with food and trick it and basically solve this in a non-combative way? That might like eke into exploration if you're kind of tricking it, but if you're able to actually communicate with it and negotiate with it, then we're getting some role play going on. And it leads into the other question of are there problems that we can just solve through talking, diplomacy, deception? Like any of that stuff would fall into the social pillar and might engage a pillar that otherwise was meant to be combat.
Using spells that allow you to change your form, or tongues that allow you to speak and understand, all of these languages. These are things that are going to allow you to get access to communicating with things that you might not normally be able to do so. And then, as Dave says, using skills like, deception, persuasion, and even intimidation can allow you to bypass a fight that either you're just not interested in, or maybe time is of importance, and just taking the time to go through a slog is just not going to work out. So, stealth and conversation are absolutely a great way to avoid, these kinds of fights.
And some players will just find it more rewarding to be able to, have the social interaction, and possibly even this is something you can come back to later in the game. This can become an NPC that the characters revisit again, in the future, where they need information, or that monster or particular NPC has a problem and comes to the players. Hey, remember the time I didn't eat you? Can you help me out? So it can lead to other fun elements of the story.
In the current game that I am running, there are 2 NPCs that were initially created solely as this is going to be a combat encounter. And in both situations, the players approached it as, well, we're just going to talk. And okay, sure. Both of those NPCs now have a regular method of communication back and forth with the party, and have become staples of information throughout the course of the entire campaign. So that has been fun to have these 2 alien mindsets of okay, we're just going to keep talking to these weird things that are from somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, this one requires a bit more buy-in from your DM. If they're not going to allow the monsters to talk to you and communicate back, it becomes more difficult. And then this might lead to another discussion outside of game where it's hey, we don't like the fact that there's only one solution for all the problems. Is this something we can negotiate on and change it? And maybe your DM will agree, maybe they won't. That's something you're going to have to work out as players at the table.
So, GMs out there, always allow for multiple solutions to any problem, because it does allow for creative thinking players and characters. And that's, what makes this game so fantastic.
Well, I won't tell you what to do at your table, but I mean, I think it opens up to have more play experiences when you're a bit more open-minded with, how things can be resolved at the table.
It was a suggestion, not a command.
You don't have that first level spell, and it's only good for one action anyway.
That would be suggestion, a second level spell, because it's suggesting a course of action as opposed to the single word. It's just that this is what makes the game more enjoyable to me as both a player and a GM, is allowing those kinds of options.
All right, so we have one more pillar left.
So this is going to be exploration. How do we approach this one?
All right, so exploration really is anytime we're not interacting with someone or fighting them, we're basically exploring. It is learning about the world around you, whether it's what's happening now in the present day, what's happened in the past, the next kingdom over, in your backyard, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's learning information you didn't have before. It can also be a little bit more action oriented as well. So you might be overcoming physical obstacles and things of that nature. Also puzzles and stuff like that would fall in that category as well. But it starts with the player asking the questions about what's in the world around us. And then through the DM, they'll start to get that information, and then they can start exploring more of it.
When you can say, does anything stand out around me? Is there anything that my character might know in this situation that might be helpful? It has the ability to give the DM the more lore to put out, more ways to explore the world that has been created. You as the player only know what information that's been given to you. So prompting the DM for more information gives you more buy-in to the game that you're playing, to the world that you're in. If you're in a city, is there anyone whose dress or wardrobe stands out that they don't belong? Do they clearly come from somewhere else? This allows you to say, oh yes, this is, they're from they're from the desert, and their garb allows them to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, tell me more. My character is interested in visiting the desert. And you can, prompt and get this information that your character might have actually known, but until it's actually been told to you, you don't actually have it.
Yeah, and also like the other pillars can lead to exploration too. Like you mentioned, like the NPC, where talking to the NPC is actually social interaction. It's the social pillar, but at the same time, if you're learning new information about the world, it's also, I would also say that's also exploration. And also, like, if you learn about where they're from and their customs and you then want to go there, right, that is a direct correlation into exploration. Fighting an exotic or strange monster or creature, and you want to learn more about it, and you do learn more about it, and they're not from here, they're from over there, so now you want to go over there and see what that's about. So like, so they, you can also see how the different pillars can lead from one to the other, and they kind of should. And sometimes the pillars are more like dimmer switches, right? Like, you're getting, some of one and some of another mixed together.
So, as Dave says, one begetting the next is very easy, and there's always something to link from one pillar to the other, no matter which direction you're looking to go, or from what pillar to what pillar. It's a lot of fun, and these prompts not only have the ability to help direct the narrative, but inform your GM that there is some aspect of the game that you are either looking for at this moment or in this session, or just inferring for the future, because that's something that's important to you and your character. And as a fellow player in this cooperative game, it's necessary that you have your hand, your portion of the pie be in something that is interesting to you.
Question is, how do you handle the different pillars of the game in your game as a player and as the dungeon master? As a player, do you have your own tricks and tips for directing a narrative in the story and getting what you want out of the game? Let us know and share your thoughts and ideas with the Nerdarchy community down in the comments below.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those things that make the YouTube and Nerdarchy happy. Like, share, subscribe, even go ahead and click on that notification bell.
Quick reminder, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new Nerdarchy videos. Come on back and see what's new. But hey, you can't wait till then. You can check out the video up here in the card, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Role Players in Dungeons & Dragons.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.